Okay, my friends, it is Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and I have five big stories for you. Let me put it like this. We're going to focus on five different regions. We're going to go from Europe to China to Iran to Russia and then to the U.S. and tariffs and how those things are being affected or affecting the world or the world's affecting it back because the world has been affecting it back. All right, let's start here. Ukraine has fulfilled 81% of its commitments under EU association agreement, the prime minister has announced after the 10th Ukraine-EU Association Council meeting. He highlighted significant progress in intellectual property, education, information exchange, humanitarian policy, justice, public procurement, and national security, where Ukraine has completed over 90% of its obligations. Okay, so 81%, like they're moving headlong toward becoming part of the EU. And that's probably a very good thing for Ukraine, given that they can't seem to pick up and move and be away from Russia, who is their next door neighbor. Okay, today I've discussed, this is Zelensky, today I've discussed with the Minister of Defense our preparations for the upcoming Ramstein meeting, which, by the way, the U.S. Secretary of Defense will be attending by Zoom, or like zooming in or some kind of video conference, which he wasn't going to attend at all. This is scheduled for Friday. Our top priority is air defense. It's air defense because this is the thing that's hurting them most. If they could have an air shield to keep from the Russians, like the Russians aren't gaining ground on the ground. The damage that Russia is doing is with missiles. If they could have that, they could solve a lot of their problems. Above all, missile defense against ballistic threats. Ukraine needs, at the very least, 10 systems that are sufficiently effective against Russian ballistic missiles, and this is where Patriots are second to none. We have repeatedly raised the issue with the American side and everyone in Europe who is in a position to help. We are counting on decisions. Right now, the world lacks not the systems themselves, but only the political decisions needed to protect lives. The systems do exist. The second priority at Ramstein is ensuring continued support throughout this year. We will need to eliminate Putin's temptation, his hope that support for Ukraine will vanish. It won't. The support will continue. And so that's where Zelensky is. I think he's right about it. He needs the air support, and he's going to try to buy this. So Ukraine is ready to purchase a major aid package from the U.S. I don't think Trump's going to say no just because he's in the middle of negotiations. I think it actually kind of dovetails nicely with the negotiations, and Ukraine's already requested at least 10 air defense systems, and they're willing to pay, and they have partners who are able to do this, and I think this is the path that will go forward. I could be wrong, but that's my take. The UK and France are hosting a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in Brussels today, bringing together defense ministers from around 30 countries to discuss security guarantees and lasting peace for Ukraine. It's organized by the UK Defense Secretary and the French Minister. The meetings aim to strengthen partner support for Ukraine's security and explore further measures to ensure stability. Okay, Europe. Got to keep doing. You got to do something tangible and material. Now, this could be just support of here's dollars. Here, give this to Ukraine. Ukraine, give this to the U.S. Get the air shield. Whatever. I mean, if that's it, that's a big step forward. But we got to see what's going to happen here. Okay, Kaya Kallas, brilliant remark. It takes two to want peace, but it only takes one to want war. It's clear that Russia wants war. Russia's not backing away from war. They're, conscripting another 160,000 so they can have the largest army that they've had in some time. What's clear is that China is the key enabler Russia's war. Without China's support, Russia wouldn't be able to wage war in the amount that they're waging. We see that 80% of dual-use goods are entering Russia through China, and that's important. Now, when we're talking about China, Zelensky also was talking about how this is the next big story when we're talking about China. Zelensky said that Russia was dragging China into the war and in Ukraine, accusing Beijing of knowingly allowing dozens of citizens to be recruited by Moscow's army to fight. Okay, so this is different in material form. It's like North Korea sent, companies or battalions or brigades, right? China is not sending that. China has allowed Chinese citizens to fight, but China, like, you're an authoritarian regime. You could stop that, but they haven't, which is odd. Okay, Zelensky says at least 155 Chinese nationals fight against Ukraine on the Russian side. He says Russia recruits them through social media such as TikTok. That's just ironic on so many levels. Documents show since some Chinese citizens serve in Russia's army since at least 2023. China is upset about this and saying, look, we're not causing this. We don't want this. China is not the initiator or the participant in Ukraine's crisis, but a firm advocate for peace, they say. China has demanded that Ukraine stop making irresponsible statements about the alleged Chinese soldiers in Ukraine. But they're not alleged. They're there, and there's many of them. But I don't think it's like a Chinese military force. It's Chinese citizens who have joined the Russian army. That's bad, but it's not as bad as it could be. Okay, next big story, we're going to go to Iran. Iran is continuing to support the axis of resistance despite its claim to English language media that it is reducing support for its proxies and partners. Now, there's been a lot of talk, if you listen to the regular news, Trump's talking about like, Iran, you better watch out because we're coming for you. It's going to be terrible if you keep this up. Okay, Iran has continued to reject demands to fully dismantle its nuclear program. And Iran, this is according to the ISW, reportedly recently delivered advanced missiles to Iranian-backed Iraqi militias, possibly in order to diversify its strike options in response to a potential U.S. or Israeli strike on Iran. Now, remember, the Iranians and the Iraqis kind of hated each other. And Saddam Hussein famously went to war with Iran for many years. But the Iraqi population is actually a majority Shia, not Sunni. And there's I believe that's the case. And so after the U.S. presence was removed and Saddam wasn't there as a strong man to keep it at odds with Iran, they got a lot cozier. And so, yeah, that's what's going on there. It's a real mess. Russian Foreign Ministry says that a military strike on Iran by its rivals would violate international law. How about that? I mean, it's amazing that they could actually say that sort of thing that would violate international laws. Let's talk about Russia now. U.S.-Russia talks started again in Istanbul. Reportedly, they will not concern Russia's war in Ukraine, but focus on U.S.-Russia relations instead. No, that's the wrong approach. That's exactly the wrong approach. You need it it's like not dealing with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Don't worry about trade deals have an open communication, but about the thing that matters. And that's the war in Ukraine. The closed door talks between U.S. and Russian diplomats in Istanbul are set to last several hours. While Ukraine's war isn't discussed, Russia seeks to restore direct air traffic with the U.S. Again, bad approach. This gives Russia what it wants. Russia is getting exactly what it wants from the U.S. normalization of relations without even talking about Ukraine. Yeah. This Peskov, Ukraine is not being discussed at Russia-U.S. talks in Istanbul. Yeah, this is not what we should be doing. Okay, next. Let's talk about the tariffs, the trade war, everything related to that, because this matters. It's affecting the whole world. Even Apple is urgently shipping 600 tons of iPhones from India to bypass Trump's tariffs. Okay, so they're trying to not have things coming from China, coming from India instead, because like Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, he's a fairly famous investor in the U.S. and Canada. He's from Canada. He's well known in the U.S. because of that. Is advocating not just 104% tariffs in China, but even 400%. Let's listen to this.
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China.
This is the wrong direction. Now, he says he does business in China and they rip him off this way and that way and the other way. But the tariffs aren't the issue. Getting them to stop doing these things is the issue.
They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field.
Okay, and I think that's kind of what Trump is thinking. I don't know, but I think that's what he's trying to think. Now, the Chinese yuan has fallen to its lowest level since 2007 due to Trump's trade war. And so all sides are hurting, but it's going to hurt our side as well. It's going to hurt your average consumer if this keeps going. U.S. oil exports to China will drop to nearly zero due to Trump's tariffs, according to Bloomberg. Okay. But the reaction here is that Europe may be going closer to China if this keeps going the way it's going. U.S. Treasury Secretary says that Europe would be cutting its own throat by getting closer to China. Quote, if the European Union strengthens trade ties with China, it would be like cutting its own throat. In his view, countries that choose to move closer to Beijing in response to Trump's tariffs will only be hurting themselves. Well, but you're kind of causing the problem that's happening here by doing what you're doing, by imposing tariffs on the EU. And the EU even wanted like, hey, how about zero between both of us? That would have been optimal, but okay. So now the EU has mirrored the U.S. move by suspending its own tariffs for 90 days. So yesterday, Trump said in a tweet, a Truth Social post, that I'm suspending the tariffs for 90 days, and the market zoomed back up. I mean, it made a U shape. It crashed when he talked about tariffs, and then it zoomed back up as soon as he started, saying he was going to lift it. Originally set to take effect on April 15th, stated by Ursula von der Leyen, quote, "We want to give negotiations a chance. If they fail, countermeasures will begin." Now, here's the tweet from her. We took note of the announcement by President Trump. We want to give it. Yeah. Okay. Now, that is exactly the right strategy. This is game theory. Game theory says that the optimal strategy, the ultimate strategy, a surprising winner was a simple strategy called tit for tat, which cooperates on the first move. You try to get along. And then if they do something to you, you do exactly the same thing back to them. Then does whatever the other player did on the previous turn. That's the maximalist strategy in game theory. So, okay, that's the best plan that you can have moving forward. And because you're teaching them that this is not the way that you want to go. And if you want to reduce it, we'll reduce it. And if you want to aggravate it, we'll aggravate it. And that's how you get where you're trying to go. Meanwhile, Stephen Miller is a deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security. You've been watching the greatest economic master strategy from an American president in history. Well, okay, so I mean, he's a partisan, but I just don't see that it's that calculated. And this is Michael McFaul posting David Axelrod. David Axelrod famously was the chief strategist for the Obama campaign. If this pause on reciprocal tariffs were actually a victory and not a strategic retreat, do you think Donald Trump would have sent someone else to announce it? I think that there's something to that. I think if it was a victory lap, he would have announced it in a meaningful way himself, like had a press conference and basked in the glory of. Okay. Andrew Perpetua posted this, asking for a friend. Is it normal for the Treasury yields to jump 5% in a few days after a president starts a trade war with a country that holds an enormous amount of bonds? Okay, but it wasn't China. Okay, so no, it's not normal for it to jump like that. I mean, this is all caused by the trade war, and that happens because of that, but it wasn't China. It was Japan. Okay, here's Charlie Gasparino. He's a Fox Business correspondent. He is someone that when he talks about markets, he knows what he's talking about. Listen to this.
Well, I mean, because of the mixed messaging, how can you doubt them? I mean, let's be clear what happened. Who capitulated here and why? And, I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down when you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market, without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business. That forced their hands. Now, what you can say, I think, legitimately here, is Trump decided to take the win. And here's why. There was overwhelmingly, deal potential here among the entire world. except for maybe China, right? Everybody really wanted something. So he did take the win.
Okay, so Trump's like, yeah, you know, they're all coming to me. They're all trying to make a deal. We'll suspend this and talk about it. So that's what, but it was Japan that forced their hands. Finally, I'll show you this. This was a flashback. This was Letterman, where David Letterman was a late night host for many years. And this was Trump, not recently, some years back, talking about his line of Trump shirts and Trump ties. Let's listen to this.
There's a line of clothing. Now, where were these made?
These were made, I don't know where they were made, but they were made someplace. But they're great. It's ties, shirts, cufflinks, everything sold at Macy's, and they're doing great. #1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
#1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
Shirt,
you wouldn't wear that
we
shirt?
We also have them in white and beautiful white.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good.
Okay.
We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
they
made?
Have to work
These are
too.
beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
Trump's not happy about that, but that's where he was when he was trying to sell something, because you can sell it, you can get it for the lowest cost there, and that's the whole story. So if you can get it for the lowest cost there, as opposed to having made it here, it would be far more expensive. And okay, I mean, that's the whole metaphor for what has been happening with these tariffs. This is also a metaphor. I'm not sure how you check for a gas leak, but I don't think that this is it. This seems like a very bad idea. Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing with the economy right now. We're just like, yeah, what'll happen if we do this? All right, my friends, that's all that I have here. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.